Hey everyone, and welcome back to my show. It is a beautiful, hot day in South Carolina. So, as per usual, my windows and my doors are open. So, you may hear some background noise, okay? Um, we're going to get into a few things. Hold on 1 minute. We're going to get into a few updates. But I kind of want to start the show off a little different today. I want to start off with something positive, something that I saw positive that touched my heart. So I'm going to start off by showing y'all a little news report that I came across that just really touched me. Okay. And then we're going to get into the politics of it all. Everything is alleged, fair use, and trigger warning. This show today is going to be quite triggering. But let's look at this video. Because I'm like, oh, there's some good people in this world still.
Finally tonight, a story about a hospital visit that for one little boy changed everything. Here is Steve Hartman on the road.
Surrounded by friends and family on his birthday, this 10-year-old was on cloud nine.
I just start with a
Thank you very much. It's been a very big 2
touching,
days.
good story. Before
We'll
we
be heading back to
what the
Washington,
fuck?
D.C.
I said pause. Before we get into all of this stuff that's goings ons with the goings ons of the military.
Yeah,
So
what the
get
real
started,
world is all
y'all.
about.
Give me a minute. All right. And I need a lot of my okay, I see y'all over on the verticals already. All right. Okay, y'all. We need to talk about what is happening right now with the war involving the United States, Iran, and several countries across the Middle East. Because this situation is moving fast. And what started as targeted strikes has now turned into a regional conflict affecting multiple countries, global oil markets, and U.S. troops overseas. So tonight I'm going to break down what started this war, what has happened in the last few days, the major escalation happening right now, and what could happen next if this keeps spiraling. So let's get into it, okay? Now, as just the basics, how this war started, it began February 28th with the United States and Israel launched, when the United States and Israel launched a coordinated military operation against Iran. The strikes targeted Iranian military leadership, ballistic missile infrastructures, nuclear program facilities, and other strategic military sites. One of the biggest turning points came very early in the conflict. Iran's longtime supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was reportedly unalive during the opening phase of the airstrikes. That immediately sent shockwaves through the region. Within days, Iran announced that Khamenei's his son, had been appointed as the country's new supreme leader, signaling that the Iranian government was not collapsing, but instead preparing to continue the fight. And that's when things escalated. Let's take a quick look at this report, and then we're going to continue on with what we are doing. Give me a minute, guys. Because I hate that this moved on me. All right. We have a few things we need to talk about today.
An unlawful war where American soldiers have already come home in flag-draped coffins, where the Middle East is burning from end to end, where the Strait of Hormuz has gone dark. Black rain is falling on Tehran. Not a metaphor. Literal black rain, oil-soaked clouds descending on a city of 9 million people after wave of American and Israeli strikes turned Iran's oil depots into infernos that have blotted out the sun. Sewage lines are burning. Fire is running through the streets like rivers. And in Washington, the man who ordered all of this picks up the phone, calls ABC News and says, quote, "I am not worried about anything at all." That is where we are right now. The President of the United States launched a war that has shut down the Strait of Hormuz for the first time in 80 years, sent energy markets into freefall, killed American soldiers whose names were read on national television this weekend, and triggered retaliatory strikes from Tehran to Tel Aviv to Bahrain to Kuwait. And his response, quote,
and let me pause it here because I see the people are starting to come in. I ask that you do not put trigger words in the chat. Y'all can bang it out in the chat. Y'all can argue. I don't mind the arguments. Please misspell cuss words and no derogatory words against particular people or cultures. You understand what I'm saying? Let's be respectful while being disrespectful.
Quote, "It is a little glitch. We had to take this detour." A detour. That is what the commander-in-chief is calling a conflict that has engulfed the entire Middle East, produced scenes that look like the Book of Revelation, and left Iran's foreign minister on American television this morning saying, "No, we are not interested in your ceasefire, not this time." In the next few minutes, I am going to show you exactly how this spiraled out of control. The 3 moments from this weekend that tell you everything about where this is headed and why the world you woke up in this morning is fundamentally more dangerous than the one you went to sleep in a week ago. Think about it like this. If someone picked a fight with you, beat you down, then offered you a handshake, and the moment you took it, they hit you again, how many times would you accept that handshake before you stopped reaching out your hand? Drop your answer in the comments, because that is exactly the calculation Iran just made on live American television. And it changes everything. Let us rewind the clock, because the speed of this conflict has buried the sequence of events that actually matter. The United States and Israel began striking Iran, hitting military targets, then oil infrastructure, then, according to multiple independent investigations from Reuters, CNN, and the New York Times, an elementary school in southern Iran that killed over 170 people, including dozens of children. Iran accepted a ceasefire the first time around. They exercised restraint. They framed it as self-defense. And when the aggression stopped, they stopped too. But then it started again. More strikes, hospitals, refineries, freshwater desalination plants, the infrastructure that literally keeps people alive in a region where purified water is more strategically vital than oil. And this time, Tehran looked at the pattern, looked at the ceasefire it had accepted before, looked at what followed that ceasefire, and made a different decision. This time, Iran said no. That single word is now reshaping the entire conflict, because Washington's entire playbook was built on the assumption that Iran would eventually fold, that the pressure would be too much, that the regime would crack. Instead, Iran is hitting back. Ballistic missiles, Shahed drones, cluster munitions landing in Tel Aviv and surrounding cities, retaliatory strikes on desalination plants in Bahrain, mirroring exactly what was done to them. And the United States has no visible exit strategy. So let me walk you through the 3 receipts from this weekend that show you exactly how unhinged this situation has become. 3 moments, 3 windows into a machine that is running without brakes.
Thank you very much. It's been a very big 2 days, I have to say. And we'll be heading back to Washington, D.C. right after this. And I'd like to wish everyone a very good evening. And over the weekend, the United States military and the Israeli Defense Forces continued Operation Epic Fury very successfully. Over the past 9 days, we've carried out some of the most powerful and complex military strikes and maneuvers the world has ever seen. Now you add that up to all of the other things, Midnight Hammer, getting rid of the nuclear threat from Iran, which was a big moment in history, in my opinion, and the great success we've had in Venezuela and all other places. Every place we've gone, we've had tremendous success. But while we're doing all of these things, we're achieving major strides toward completing our military objective. And some people could say they're pretty well complete. We've wiped every single force in Iran out very completely. Most of Iran's naval power has been sunk. It's on the bottom of the sea. It's almost 50 ships. I was just notified it's 51 ships. I didn't know they had that many. Didn't last very long. And these are fighting vessels. They're meant to fight, but they're not meant to fight against us.
He's actually
We continue to target
comical.
Iran's drone and missile capabilities. Their drones are way down. Their drone manufacturing's been hit starting today. We know all of the places they manufacture the drones, and they're being hit one after another. Their missile capability is down to about 10%, maybe less. We're also hitting where they make missiles and where they deliver missiles. We've struck over 5,000 targets to date, some of them very major targets, and we've left some of the most important targets for later in case we need to do it. If we hit them, it's going to take many years for them to be rebuilt, having to do with electricity production and many other things. So we're not looking to do that if we don't have to. But they're the kind of things that are very easy to hit, but very devastating if they are hit. We are waiting to see what happens before we hit them. We could take them all out in one day, but it's all resulting in a 90% decline in various things, but in particular, Iranian missile launchers and 83% drop in drone launchers. As you know, the drone launchers are pretty well shot, but we're at over 90% decline in the Iranian missile launchers, which is very hard to reproduce and very hard to get. And usually what we were able to do through great equipment, a lot of smart people, as soon as they sent a missile up from a launcher, we were able to knock out that launcher within a period of 5 minutes or less, accurately right on the noggin. So now we have low-cost interceptors effectively combating Iranian drones, and our B-2 bombers recently dropped dozens of 2,000-pound bombs to destroy missile launchers all over Iran and buried deep under Iranian soil in many cases. The soil was no match. And we're also annihilating the manufacturing base that the regime uses to build drones and missiles at a rate that nobody thought was possible. We're knocking them out. We know where they all are. We're knocking them out very quickly. We're ahead of our initial timeline by a lot. I would say that we probably would not have thought after a month we'd be here. In addition to the fact that we've taken out the leadership twice and maybe 3 times. And we, as you know, we want to be involved.
If y'all don't understand,
we don't want another president that maybe wouldn't be willing to do what I'm willing to do for the good of the world, for the good of our nation, to be stuck with a situation in 5 years or 10 years from now. So we think they should put a president in, or the head of the country in, that's going to be able to do something peacefully for a change. They've been doing this for 47 years, killing people for 47 years, whether it's the barracks or even the SS Cole where they were involved. Very strongly, they always denied it. But where they were very strongly involved, and all of the people that died through the roadside bombs died and are right now walking around with no legs, no arms.
Oh my God.
A face that's been so badly damaged. The Iranian regime has been attacking Americans and spreading terror for 47 years. And despite these countless opportunities to renounce their nuclear ambitions, which they had just a short while ago, they told Mr. Witkoff, who is standing right over here, they said, they actually said, we want to keep building. Essentially, in a real nutshell, we want to continue to build nuclear weapons. If we didn't knock out Midnight Hammer, if we didn't knock out their Iranian potential, If we didn't do that with Midnight Hammer, they would have had a nuclear weapon. They would have used it long before now. And at a minimum, Israel would have been annihilated. I was very lucky that we had the courage to do that, that we had the talented pilots and the great equipment. The B-2 bombers are unbelievable. We ordered 25 more, by the way, the newer, better version. It's we have the greatest military in the world. We have the greatest equipment in the world by far. You see that no matter where we go. You still need the people, though, to operate it and to use it. And those are the people that we cherish. Even after we obliterated their key nuclear sites in Operation Midnight Hammer, they never negotiated in good faith. They still continued to say, we want to build nuclear.
so
We
much,
want
Stephen.
enrichment at levels that were unacceptable. And they even turned down an offer for unlimited free nuclear fuel forever for civilian purposes. We had people offering them free nuclear fuel. They weren't interested in that because they wanted to build a nuclear weapon. So instead, the regime was trying to reconstitute its weapons program at a different site. They couldn't go back to where they were, the 3 sites that we obliterated, but they were starting work at another site, a different site, different kind of a site. And that was protected by granite. They wanted it protected. Granite's pretty good, but they wanted it protected by a lot deeper. They wanted to go a lot deeper, and they started the process while rapidly building conventional ballistic missiles. They were going to do it all at the same time. It threatened our overseas bases and soon could have reached even our homeland. The regime's intention was to use this exponentially growing ballistic missile threat to make it virtually impossible to prevent them from obtaining a nuclear weapon. So as you probably saw, they had a tremendous number of missiles, most of which have now been used or destroyed, and very unsuccessfully used because we have been able, for the most part, to shoot them all down. What incredible technology. The Patriots have been unbelievable, and other things. And the laser technology that we have now is incredible. It's coming out pretty soon. Where literally lasers will do the work of, at a lot less cost, do the work of what the Patriots.
And let me say this about laser technology, guys. That laser technology has been out for a long time. You will see patents on these different types of technology, and they have been using them, like trying them out. So that laser technology is definitely around and almost ready to go.
Doing or what other things are doing. The situation was very quickly approaching the point of no return, and the United States found it intolerable, in my opinion, based on what Steve and Jared and Pete and others were telling me, Marco, so involved, that I thought that they were going to attack us. I thought they would, if we didn't do this at the time we did it, I think they had in mind to attack us. And if you notice, they did something which was very foolish, very stupid, I would say. They attacked their neighbors, and their neighbors were largely neutral, or at least weren't going to be involved, and they got attacked. And it had the reverse effect. The neighbors came onto our side and started attacking them, and actually quite successfully.
I'll double tap the
If you
screen,
look
please.
at Saudi Arabia, you look at UAE, Qatar, and others, but they were strong and they were smart, but they got attacked. Nobody, when I first heard it, I said, no, somebody made a mistake. There was no mistake. UAE had over 1,000 missiles shot at it, knocked them almost all down. On the very first day I came down the escalator in 2015, I said, quote, I will stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. And all I'm doing is keeping my promise. Think of that. That was in 2015. I said it. It was a threat then and a much bigger threat now, but no longer a threat, not for a long time anyway. We want to keep it that way. As we continue Operation Epic Fury, we're also focused on keeping energy and oil flowing to the world. And I will not allow a terrorist regime to hold the world hostage and attempt to stop the globe's oil supply. And if Iran does anything to do that, they'll get hit at a much, much harder level. I will take out those targets that were easy and that I mentioned just before. We'll take them out so quickly they'll never be able to recover, ever. If they want to play that game, they better not play that game. In the long run, oil supplies will be dramatically more secure without the threat of Iranian ships, drones, missiles, nuclear menace, or anything. So the Strait of Hormuz is going to remain safe. We have a lot of Navy ships there. We have the best equipment in the world, inspecting for mines. Again, most of their ships are down at the bottom of the sea, but we will hit them so hard that it will not be possible for them or anybody else helping them to ever recover that section of the world if they do anything. In recent years,
Do y'all see a poll in the chat? Let me see if you let me know if y'all see polls, because I'm gonna add another one in a minute. If you see a poll, let's vote. Please, let's vote. Where are we on this? Because I swear Trump must be medicated, or he just tired, child. Hold on. What is this one?
Black rain is falling on.
I know y'all don't like CNN. Just bear with me. We only got 8 minutes of CNN.
Soaring. West Texas crude now hovering around $100 a barrel. You can see this chart over time. The last time it was this high was when Russia invaded Ukraine, and that height was at June of 2022. But I want you to look at the very end of this chart, an almost vertical increase over the last 2 weeks, an incredibly quick rise over a very short period of time. It could get even higher, experts say, by the end of March, maybe even $150 a barrel if travel through the Strait of Hormuz does not start flowing again. That flow of oil through that critical waterway has effectively ground to a halt. It's only a 20-mile stretch of sea between Iran and Oman, and actually only a 2-mile wide sea lane. The president shrugged off the rise in oil prices, calling it a very small price to pay for USA and world safety and peace. CNN's Matt Egan is with us now. In these prices we've seen overnight, the sharp increase, more than 10% in one day, Matt. That's pretty staggering.
Yeah, it is absolutely staggering. Look, oil prices are going through the roof. And, you know, oil is a notoriously boom to bust market. But even by those standards, this is just a historic spike. Look at this.
Yeah. Gas prices.
Oil prices nine months ago, all the way on the left side of your screen. That was the last time there were tensions with Iran and a conflict. And that looks like just a tiny increase compared to what's going on now. Before the war started, U.S. oil prices were trading at about $67 a barrel. At one point overnight, they got to $119 a barrel. Now, let's look at a live look at oil prices. You can see they have pulled back from that peak just over $100 now. However, 11% increase, a $10 increase of dollar amounts. At one point this morning, U.S. oil prices were on track for their biggest one-day dollar increase in history. Now, as you mentioned, the problem is the fact that this war has disrupted the supply of oil out of the Middle East. And it's not just that the Strait of Hormuz effective closure is delaying the shipment of oil out of the region. It's the fact that oil producers there, they have nowhere to put the oil. They're running out of room to store it all. So they have to slash production. And you look at gas prices, $2.98 before the war started, $3.48 a gallon right now. That's the highest level since August of 2024. Quite the move in just the span of a little over a week. And, you know, this is another look at gas prices as well. Zooming out, you can see how it's just going significantly higher. Now, it's not just gas, though, John. Jet fuel, right? Jet fuel prices have skyrocketed. United Airlines CEO warning that could raise the cost of airfare. And diesel as well. Diesel prices, they're actually up by even more than gasoline on a percentage basis. 24% increase. This is a 3-year high. And look, this is bad news for farmers, for railroads, for trucks, and ultimately, John, for consumers, because everyone is indirectly paying the cost of diesel when they're buying stuff. So this is a significant situation. And look, the White House is arguing, the president has said that this is hopefully just a short-term glitch and that prices will eventually crash. Hopefully, he's right. I think the bottom line here is how long does this last, right? The duration. Because if this is just a few days of $100 or so oil, this could end up just being a blip economically. But if this is something that lasts in terms of weeks or even longer, then you're going to start to hear some people really concerned
to go up.
The Pentagon issuing a direct warning to the Iranian people, stay home. The U.S. says the regime is operating from heavily populated civilian areas, putting innocent lives at grave risk. The U.S. now confirming the death of a 7th service member from Operation Epic Fury. Our chief national security correspondent, Jennifer Griffin, with more now here in Washington. Jennifer?
John, most American service members killed and injured since the start of this operation were hit by Iranian missiles in the first weekend of the strikes as part of Iran's first round of response, we're told. Sergeant Benjamin N. Pennington, 26, of Glendale, Kentucky, died March 8th from injuries sustained on March 1st at Prince Sultan Air Base, Saudi Arabia. He was assigned to 1st Space Battalion out of Fort Carson, Colorado. Soon he will be returned home to Dover, met by Vice President J.D. Vance. Sergeant Pennington was in the process of being transferred to Landstuhl, Germany for further care when he succumbed to his catastrophic injuries. 8 additional U.S. service members are currently fighting for their lives at U.S. military hospitals. Earlier today, a second Iranian ballistic missile was intercepted over Turkey, where the U.S. has a key base at Incirlik. Amidst reports, the Russians are providing targeting intelligence to Iran.
Are you receiving any help from Russia?
Well, we have a strategic partnership with Russia.
So that's a yes?
And well, a military cooperation between Iran and Russia is not something new. It's not a secret. It has been in the past and is still there and will continue in the future.
Last night, Secretary Hegseth spoke to 60 Minutes.
Does this put U.S. personnel in any more danger than they otherwise would be?
Well,
the Russian involvement.
No one's putting us in danger. We're putting the other guys in danger. That's our job. So we're not concerned about that. We mitigate it as we need to. Our commanders factor all of this, but the only ones that need to be worried right now are Iranians that think they're going to live.
Separately, CENTCOM issued a warning to Iranians to stay home and away from crowded areas like markets or funerals or schools because the IRGC is placing mobile missile launchers and one-way attack drones amidst the crowds, knowing the U.S. is likely to strike back, causing civilian deaths, which would be a propaganda win for the regime. John?
All right, we'll keep watching it all unfold. We've got you looking at everything very closely. Jennifer Griffin for us. Jennifer, thank you. Sandra?
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
The new video appears to show a U.S. airstrike on an Iranian military base right next to the elementary school where Iranian state media says more than 160 girls were killed. CNN's Isabel Young looks at the video and the evidence that suggests the U.S. may be responsible for that strike on the school.
This is the moment a missile slammed into an Iranian base in Minab, a city in southern Iran, just over a week ago. In this freeze frame, you can see it clearly. Weapons experts tell CNN the wings and tail are consistent with a Tomahawk missile. This new video is the clearest evidence yet that suggests it was the United States that struck an elementary school next to that Revolutionary Guards base, killing scores of students. The US has been firing those Tomahawk missiles at Iran from ships and submarines for more than a week now. Israel doesn't use them, experts tell us.
Mr. President, did the United States bomb a girls' elementary school in southern Iran on the first day of the war and kill 170?
No, in my opinion, based on what I've seen, that was done by Iran.
Is that true, Mr. Hegseth? It was Iran who did that?
We're certainly investigating.
Iran also doesn't use Tomahawk missiles. And using satellite images, it's clear the school was struck nearly simultaneously with strikes on an adjacent Revolutionary Guards base. That suggests precision targeting. CNN geolocated this video. We think this missile struck the military base, not the school. You can see that other buildings in the direction of the school had just been struck when this was filmed. CNN is still trying to gather visual evidence from the ground, and until we see actual remnants from the munitions itself, it's impossible to be definitive. But this is the clearest evidence to date. US Central Command says they're still investigating. Isabel Young, CNN, London.
In response to CNN's findings, a US military spokesperson said it would be inappropriate to comment given the incident is still under investigation.
For more on this, let's bring in U.S. Army retired Lieutenant General Mark Schwartz. He also serves as a CNN military analyst. Thank you so much, General, for joining us.
Now, let me get back to my notes. Iran's retaliation. Okay. With Iran's retaliation, they responded quickly. Missiles and drones began targeting U.S. military bases and allies across the Middle East. Some of the locations that have been hit include Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, Israel, and other strategic energy infrastructures in the Gulf region. Iranian drone and missile strikes have damaged ports, oil facilities, and military sites, while several countries have been forced to intercept waves of incoming weapons. And we've seen some of those interceptions on live TV. Some attacks have even damaged facilities tied to the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain. At the same time, Iranian missiles and drones have been launched towards Israel and U.S. positions throughout the region, widening the battlefield. So this is no longer just a single front. It's now a regional conflict stretching across multiple countries. There have been so many civilian and military casualties. The war has already caused significant casualties, like Iranian officials say there are more than 1,200 people that have been unalived in the airstrikes, with many being civilians, and damage reported to hospitals and infrastructures. Meanwhile, the United States has confirmed multiple American military deaths during this conflict, including several service members killed during Iranian attacks on U.S. facilities. There have also been casualties in Gulf countries where missile debris and drone strikes have injured civilians. So this is not just a military conflict anymore. It is impacting entire populations across the region. And we continue to look at the news.
And now they didn't.
Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Iran has a new leader, but no regime change. The son of the former Ayatollah is considered to be even more of a hardliner than his father.
Meanwhile, Israeli forces are targeting Iran's oil facilities and military infrastructure, while Iran and Hezbollah continue launching missiles at Israel. CBN News Middle East correspondent
countries have borne much of Tehran's response after the United States and Israel started striking Iran. Drones have struck Dubai and Abu Dhabi, with Bahrain and Kuwait also reporting damage. Speaking on Monday, Kuwait's emir condemned Iran's attacks on his country, where 12 people have been killed so far, insisting on Kuwait's full and inherent right to self-defense. Well, apart from strong words condemning Iran for the strikes, the Gulf states have not responded.
Let me pause it since I see it in my chat. Yes, direct energy weapons. They, this is what I was speaking of earlier. Okay? Without getting too far into it, just look it up. They've been using that already.
To the strikes yet. Let's speak to Dr. Ahmed
Why is she
Kuzai,
talking
who's
so
a
slow?
politics expert at the N7 Initiative of the Atlantic Council, a non-partisan policy development and convening platform dedicated to improving cooperation between key US partners in the Middle East and also around the world. Thank you very much for joining us. Can you explain then the position of the Gulf states at the moment, given that they have been attacked by Iran?
Yes. After
all the bombardment with
I know I keep turning the channel, but I need something that's going to catch my attention.
So right now, growing questions about the future of Iran as the terror regime names the Ayatollah's son as its new supreme leader. He's a hardline cleric, widely considered more radical than his dad.
President Trump warning, quote, he's going to have to get approval from us. If he doesn't get approval from us, he's not going to last long.
Former ambassador at large and counterterrorism coordinator Nathan Sales served in the State Department in President Trump's first term, and he joins us now. Nathan, thanks so much for joining the program. So we had a lot of experts on, and they've been across, other networks as well. And many of the people following this didn't think that they were going to choose the son. They got it wrong. Why do you think?
Well, I think the Iranian regime is doubling down on its failed strategy of trying to defy and wage war on the United States and the West. This is an establishment choice. He may not have been the consensus frontrunner, but picking the son of the old leader signals continuity. And it's very much a meet the new boss, same as the old boss type situation. One other thing to emphasize about this new guy, he has very strong ties to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the sort of shock troops of the Iranian regime and its exporter of revolutionary ideology around the region. Of course, that's just formalizing what has always been the case. The IRGC has long been the power behind the throne when it comes to the Iranian regime. So this just sort of brings that role out of the shadows and into the spotlight.
I know you've talked about the three goals, which is the nuclear weapons, make sure they don't have nuclear weapons, the ballistic missile threat, and the terror proxies. This is what the New York Times is saying about about Iran being able to retrieve their uranium. They say American intelligence agencies have determined that Iran or potentially another group could retrieve Iran's primary store of highly enriched uranium, even though it was entombed under the country's nuclear site at Isfahan by U.S. strikes last year. Officials familiar with the intelligence said that Iran can now get to the uranium through a very narrow access point. What's your reaction to that? We don't want them to have access to this.
Well, it sounds like the military just added another target to the list. The Iranians are going to keep trying at this. The reason why this war started is because of their determination to preserve a pathway to a bomb. So it shouldn't surprise us at all that they're going to do what they can to recover access to their highly enriched uranium. But we have a play here as well, and that is the same play that we made last June when we targeted the nuclear weapons program. We can drop a couple of bombs on that target, I imagine, make it pretty difficult to excavate that uranium.
Well, that would certainly help. So Ali Larijani says, we're going to relentlessly avenge the blood of our leader and our people, meaning the Ayatollah. Trump must pay and will pay. Trump came back and says, I have no idea who this guy is, who they're talking about. What is your take on the bravado we're still getting from them? Even though they've been devastated, we're moving past Tehran now into the heartland, targeting the IRGC in all 31 provinces.
Well, I think part of this is for a domestic audience. I think the regime is afraid for its life, and it's trying to signal to Iranian citizens that they're still in charge and they're still in control. I don't think the Iranian people believe it. We saw hundreds of thousands of people out in the street last January, in response to which tens of thousands were murdered by regime goons. So I think this is partly a play for the regime to convince a very doubtful Iranian public that they're still calling the shots.
Wow. Nathan Sales, thanks so much.
Thank you, Nathan.
I'm Steve Duke.
And we are getting along so well with the people that are involved and representing Venezuela that I don't think we're going to have any I don't think it's going to be necessary to do the second wave. We were planning on a second wave, but the first wave was so powerful and so good and so strong. And frankly, the people in the country, they did the right thing. They were smart. They did the right thing. They didn't want to go through a second wave. But we've got a tremendous number of the most powerful ships in the world right there. I don't think we're going to have to use that. I'm happy to say that. I don't think we're going to have to use that at all. If I could ask Chevron, you did a great job. I want to thank you. And ExxonMobil, if you would say a few words, and then followed by Conoco, great companies, massive companies, great companies. Exxon, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President.
Hey,
I appreciate
Anthony.
the invitation and the opportunity, frankly, for the entire industry to show up and provide a perspective.
Hey,
Frankly, we've been kind of unresponsive to the press regarding Venezuela. I guess today's the opportunity to address the press directly with respect to a number of questions that have been asked of ExxonMobil. First and foremost, obviously, is the interest that we have in Venezuela. And I think, the way I would position that, I think one of the reasons why we see many of the industry players here is we're in a depletion business for a product that is in great demand and will be in demand for many, many, many decades to come. And as a depletion business, the biggest challenge we have is finding resources. There's an opportunity in Venezuela. All the resources there is we don't have that challenge of finding. We have the challenge of developing those resources. So I think it's in the best interest of these companies and, frankly, society as a whole for the industry to be interested in understanding what the opportunity here represents. I'll just share a philosophy that ExxonMobil has when we enter countries, because we do business all around the world in a number of different regimes. We take a very long-term perspective. The investments that we make span decades and decades, so we do not go into any opportunity with a short-term mindset. And there's a value proposition that we have to meet. It has to be a win-win-win proposition. Obviously, it has to be a win for the company and our shareholders and to generate a return for the investments that we make. Has to be a win for the government. The resources are an important source of revenue that helps support the people of the places that we do business. And it has to be a win for the people. We have to be wanted there and to be a good neighbor. And those three things ensure a stable, long-term platform for the large investments that we make for the long term. With respect to Venezuela in particular, we have a very long history in Venezuela. In fact, we first got into Venezuela back in 1940s. We've had our assets seized there twice. And so you can imagine to re-enter a third time would require some pretty significant changes from what we've historically seen here and what is currently the state. If we look at the legal and commercial constructs and frameworks in place today in Venezuela, today it's uninvestable. And so significant changes have to be made to those commercial frameworks, the legal system. There has to be durable investment protections, and there has to be a change to the hydrocarbon laws in the country. We're confident that with this administration and President Trump working hand in hand with the Venezuelan government,
I'm just turning the channel, guys.
Welcome back. Russia has joined the fight, helping Iran target Americans. The War Secretary is talking about it.
Does this put...
My bad.
Welcome back. Russia has joined the fight, helping Iran target Americans. The War Secretary is talking about it.
Does this put U.S. personnel in any more danger than they otherwise would be?
Well,
the Russian involvement.
No one's putting us in danger. We're putting the other guys in danger. That's our job. So we're not concerned about that. We mitigate it as we need to. Our commanders factor all of this, but the only ones that need to be worried right now are Iranians that think they're going to live.
And the biggest news bulletin of the morning, Iran confirmed in an interview that Russia is helping them.
Are you receiving any help from Russia?
Well, we have a strategic partnership with Russia.
So that's a yes?
And well, a military cooperation between
How do
Iran
y'all
and Russia
feel
is
about
not
that?
something new. It's not a secret. It has been in the past, and it's still there and will continue in the future.
Annie?
That's not good. Senator Mike Rounds joins us.
I love for y'all to engage in the chat, but you have to be careful with that word. Use PDO file, PDO light, but can someone remove that comment? Just not that whole word, okay? But yeah, you can call him all the PDOs you like.
Now, Senator, what should the president do?
Well, first of all, the president is doing what he's supposed to be doing right now. He took the right steps when he decided that this military action was necessary and that this was the right time. But second of all, with regard to Russia, look, they're not doing anything that we don't know about. And the secretary was correct. It's the Iranians that should be worried about this. Our intel is very good. These guys can't do anything without us knowing what's going on. And this is not something new. It's not something that's surprising to anybody that's been following it. One thing that could happen right now, we would love to have approval by the White House for the sanctions bill. I think we've got almost 90 co-sponsors in the United States Senate. I'm one of the co-sponsors. Senator Lindsey Graham has been preparing it now for literally months. We would love at this point to have the president just walk on in and just say, look, guys, we've had enough patience with Russia. Let's put the sanctions bill on them right now. That would send an additional message to the Russians that
I got it,
get away
Judy.
with this stuff.
And we'll see. Maybe that happens this week. Something else. The Ayatollah and his crew getting wiped out got all the attention on the first day of Epic Fury. But something terrible happened that day. According to the Wall Street Journal, this is a quote, U.S. military investigators think American forces likely were responsible for a strike that killed dozens of children at a girls' elementary school in Iran. The investigation hasn't reached a final conclusion, the official said. We did hear from President Trump and Pete Hegseth last night about this.
Currently investigating. But the only side that targets civilians.
It's okay, Patch. I got it. Thank you, Boo.
We think it was done by Iran because they're very inaccurate, as you know, with their munitions. They have no accuracy whatsoever. It was done by Iran.
Senator Rounds, what are you hearing about this?
What we know is that there was a loss of life there. It was children. We don't know what happened. We'll wait and see what the investigators come up with. But what I can tell you is America, the United States, does not target women and children. We simply don't do it. Iranians do. They've been the terrorist state literally for 40 some years. They have no fear about doing it. We don't do that, at least not on purpose. The one question I have on this is where was it located compared to any military operations that might have been involved? Did the Iranians decide that they were going to put one of their military bases right next to school? Perhaps an attempt to not have it be targeted? I mean, it's a possibility. We don't know. What I do know is the Iranians would have no fear of taking out children and women any place in the world. They are responsible for thousands of deaths. We're not.
That's not my
and we're going to do our
stream.
best.
How do you guys feel about the school being attacked? I'm curious to know because these kids, these civilians, they don't deserve what's happening to them. They don't deserve it.
Best always to focus on military targets. The president is correct when he talks about what our goals are and so forth. And once again, America doesn't go after women and children.
And Senator Rounds, I want to make a turn here just before we let you go. We have to ask you about Kristi Noem. She is from your state. She used to be your governor. There is talk that she might file for a Senate campaign. She has till March 31st. Is she going to primary you?
The only issue that I've got with primaries right now, and it's the primary concern I've got, and that is Democrats in the United States Senate that are not doing anything about the Department of Homeland Security. As long as I continue to do my job and we focus on what's important to the people of South Dakota, everything else falls into place.
Is Sam Ray? I have to agree with you. Everybody knows I had two little grandbabies that passed away. It is hard as hell to see small coffins because they are the innocent ones. They don't deserve this at all.
Meanwhile, Mark Wayne is going to do a great job. I think he will be confirmed very, very quickly. And I think he'll have strong support from Republicans and Democrats. He'll do a very good job for the president and for the country.
All right. We are going to keep an eye on this. We will be tracking until March 31st. We'll see what Kristi Noem does. Thank you very much, Senator Noem.
Have a good one.
Senator Rounds.
You bet.
And let me say, my last live, I was trying to get into the whole Noam thing. We could look at that together because I was over here minding my business while being nosy, and someone said she had get fired. Y'all, let's look and see what's going on, and then we're going to get into the biblical aspect of this and what this is telling me biblically. Okay, here, let's look at this, y'all.
Well, folks, things appear to not be going very well in MAGA land because now Kristi Noem is attacking Donald Trump after he fired her. I think Noem is finally realizing that if you have loyalty to Donald Trump, that is always a one-way street. He will never have your back. He will only keep you around as long as...
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Queena. Thank you for the jewels. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, my God. This is my first time ever seeing this, y'all. Thank you. Oh.
You are useful to him, and then after that, you are essentially worthless in Donald Trump's eyes. That is the MAGA cycle with Trump. I don't know how more of these people haven't realized this, but it happens every single time. And so now, Kristi Noem is not only speaking out publicly, but she's also leaking information to different journalists. So I want to get into the story with you, talk about what Kristi Noem is saying. Before I do any of that, please make sure to subscribe down below, drop a like on the video, comment, let me know what you think about this story. Let's get into it. So first of all, before we hear from Kristi Noem and what she and her team are leaking to the press about her firing, let's just go back to yesterday, the day she was fired, and Fox News reported on the three main reasons why Kristi Noem was removed from her position. And it's also clear that somebody from inside the White House leaked this information to them and kind of threw her under the bus publicly as well. So let's hear what Fox News said were the top three reasons why Kristi Noem was removed.
The soundbite we were looking for, the testimony that apparently really upset the president, where Noem said, yes, we went through the legal process and did it correctly when asked if the president authorized and approved that $200 million in spending. He did not. He said that he was not aware of this campaign, certainly did not authorize it. And then there were also these rumors of an affair with Corey Lewandowski, special government employee who was serving as an advisor. He is also married, and reports floating the last several weeks that Noem had sought to appoint Lewandowski as her chief of staff, but the president blocked that decision amid these rumors of an affair. So the combination of those factors that tipped the president's decision to elevate Mark Wayne Mullen into this position and get him confirmed. Martha.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Jackie, because, you know, the person that you're citing, the source that you're citing, and just tick off for us again the three things that they told you went into this decision, because that's not really a soft pedal the way that it was described to you. Can you go through those again one more time?
Minnesota, her handling of the fallout to the deaths in Minnesota of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, the statements that she made in public calling them domestic terrorists before some of the facts had come in, and her handling of that scenario, the ad campaign, the $200 million that featured her on horseback at Mount Rushmore and claiming that the president signed off on it when he had not, and also the allegations of an affair with Corey Lewandowski. This person close to the president described these three things as a combination of her many unfortunate leadership failures. So less a decision to move her into a new role than to get her out of the one she had been serving in.
Yeah.
I mean, those are all some pretty serious reasons. And I've said previously that Kristi Noem should have never been anywhere near the Department of Homeland Security, but any of those individual reasons they just listed, she should have been fired on the spot for. In a normal administration, that is what would happen. But of course, we're living under Donald Trump, and nothing is normal about that. But here's the thing about that ad campaign specifically. that Kristi Noem was fired for. That's like one of the main reasons, if not the main reasons, why Kristi Noem was fired from the Department of Homeland Security. She has actually talked about these ads publicly before, and she told a very different story that actually Donald Trump thought of the idea, signed off on it, encouraged her to do it. And this is from a previous clip, but this is what Kristi Noem said publicly about those ads before, of course, she was fired.
Talked to me several times. We had several meetings during the transition talking about it. And he said to me one day, we had a meeting, I left his office, and then Natalie came chasing me down the hall, and she goes, the president wants to tell you something he forgot to visit with you about. So I came back into his office, and he said, Kristi, do you know those ads that you did in South Dakota?
Oh,
and
yes,
I said,
yes,
yes, sir. You mean my Freedom Works Here ads? And he said, yeah, those ones where those beautiful ads, those beautiful ads you did about South Dakota. They had Mount Rushmore, all those things. He said, I want you to do those for the border.
Brilliant.
And I said, well, sir, I don't know how that works. You mean the ones where I was a plumber and where I was an electrician? And I don't know if I can do those for the border. And he said, no, I want you to do those for the border. And I want you to do those everywhere, not just in the United States, but I want them around the world. I want you to tell people not to come to this country if they're going to come here illegally. And I said, well, sir, we can do press conferences. We can tell people what we're doing. And he said, nope, we're not going to let the media tell this story, because the media will never tell the truth. We're going to do a marketing campaign to make sure the American people know the truth of what you're doing. And I said, well, sir, do you want to be in those ads? And he said, nope, I want you to do them.
No?
He said, no, I don't. I want you in the ads. He said, I want you in the ads, and I want your face in the ads. But he said, but I want the first ad. I want you to thank me. So I want you to thank me for closing the border. And I said, yes, sir, I will thank you for closing the border. So if you notice, in that ad, we thanked him for closing the border. And then,
wow, that's a different story, huh? That's a different narrative that's coming out of the White House. Donald Trump has said, I had no idea about this ad campaign. Well, Kristi Noem is saying, actually, you did. It was your idea. I mean, you pushed for it. She's saying, I wanted to do press conferences or whatever it might be, Q&As, anything. Donald Trump insisted on the ads, according to her. Now, quite frankly, we have no idea what the truth actually is until Congress really digs into this and the contracts that were given out for this ad campaign, because they're both liars, right? You can't really pick the side of a liar here. And unfortunately, both sides are liars. You have Donald Trump. We know who he is. Kristi Noem. We know who she is. Bunch of liars. So it's hard to say, but maybe it's some variation of something in the middle. I don't know. But Kristi Noem calling out Donald Trump, saying that his, sequence of events is not right. Them saying the opposite about Kristi Noem. And now I want to hear from Reagan Reese. She is the White House correspondent or White House journalist for the Daily Caller. And she has heard from sources close to Kristi Noem that not only was Donald Trump unhappy with her, but she was unhappy with him near the end of her tenure. This brawl that seems to be brewing and the early stages of it might get significantly worse in the coming days and weeks. Another MAGA civil war breaking out possibly. Let's hear from Reagan Reese.
Kristi Noem has been fired. The White House had grievances with her, but she also had grievances with the White House. Here's what my sources are telling me. Reagan Reese here, the White House correspondent for the Daily Caller. So yesterday, President Trump put out a Truth Social announcing that he was replacing Kristi Noem with Senator Mullen. There's been rumblings for a while that the president hasn't been happy with Secretary Noem, but reports have recently come out that the final straw was this $200 million ad campaign that she said during congressional hearings.
Well, let me say this. Maybe, I don't know. I don't think she's lying. Maybe because, he's not looking that great on camera. Maybe he feels like she's a beautiful woman. She'll get more attention if it's said from her. So I do believe it's possible. But how much did she spend on it? Was it $2 million? Girl, I think there's some truths to some lies
That the president knew about. The president has claimed otherwise. I spoke to several sources who said that overall, Kristi Noem was not doing a great job and had messed up several things that had led the president to essentially lose confidence in her. But like I mentioned earlier, the White House wasn't the only one who was upset with this whole situation. Kristi Noem was upset with the White House. One official told...
I got to pause. It was 200. Y'all, which one? Let me look it up. Was it 200 million? I know y'all fucking lying. I know y'all lying to me. Hold on. Let me see. Let me let it play while I look this up. Ooh.
Told me that Kristi Noem has felt thrown under the bus since Minnesota by the White House and felt like she was not receiving enough support from within the administration. The source also.
Damn it, lying. It is 200 million. It is 200 million. You know what that could have done for the country? 200 million in ads? Where did that money come from? We know he don't have
So
$200
added
million.
that at the end of last year, Kristi Noem went to the president and said that she didn't feel like she was being supported. He agreed with her, decided to step it up. She felt like she was finally getting the support she wanted. And then Minnesota hit. She went back to feeling that same way. And on this ad campaign that has become so controversial, this source told me that the White House didn't just know about it. They actually worked on it with the secretary. Of course, there's another side to this. This then saw up some angry statements from some other administration officials. I'm going to read you this one. Quote, "It's laughable that Kristi is trying to blame her own self-inflicted issues on someone else. The issues that led to Kristi's replacement were a result of her own wrongdoings, not a lack of support from the White House," end quote. It's been a tense situation on both sides. One source telling me, quote, "Anyone who's close to this situation at all could see this coming," end quote.
Wow. Ain't that something, huh? Ain't that something? Kristi Noem going at Donald Trump, Trump going at her, White House officials going at her. Interesting. So according to Reagan Reese, the White House actually worked.
I'm surprised she's doing talking. I figured that those type of people would have to sign some sort of NDA. Oops, what the hell? Hold on. How did I get here? Ooh. Should we look at that? I ain't even mean to click that. Huh. Hold on, y'all.
Well, folks, things appear to not be going very well in MAGA land because now Kristi.
I didn't even mean to click that, but that. Look at this shit. Hold on, y'all. Now I got to make it back to the dirt. Play this.
A barrage of Iranian ballistic missiles has rocked Israel's commercial hub, Tel Aviv, triggering multiple explosions and sending millions of residents scrambling for safety. Air raid sirens echoed across the country as incoming projectiles streaked through the night sky. The dramatic escalation comes as Tehran unleashes yet another wave of strikes in its intensifying confrontation with Israel. According to Israeli media reports, at least 15 explosions were heard across Tel Aviv following the arrival of cluster warheads fired from Iranian ballistic missiles. The strikes came shortly after Iran announced the launch of the 30th wave of its military campaign, known as Operation True Promise 4. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said the barrage included Khurramshahr, Fatah, and Khaybar ballistic missiles, as well as strategic drones aimed at Israeli targets. The IRGC said the strikes were directed at military and strategic locations linked to Israel and United States forces in the region. As the missiles approached Israeli territory, air raid sirens began sounding across large parts of the country. Alerts were reported in Tel Aviv, Haifa, the Galilee, the Jordan Valley, and several settlements across central Israel. Media reports also reveal massive power outages in the wake of Iran's bombardment. Footage circulating on social media appeared to show the aftermath of the explosions, with damaged vehicles, shattered shopfront windows, and debris scattered across streets. Reportedly, Iranian cluster warheads have carved massive craters across the Tel Aviv region. One missile fragment reportedly struck a residential building in Tel Aviv.
Since we've, hold on, kind of caught up on everything that is currently happening, there's something I kind of want to switch it to before I get out of here, because I wanted to do an hour of what's in the news when it comes to the war with Iran. But there's something else biblically that could be going on. So before I wrap this up, there's something I want to address with y'all. And I've been seeing it all over social media. A lot of people are bringing up that gold dome in Jerusalem and asking if something happening to it would mean something religious or prophetic. And I've heard many prophetic stories surrounding the Dome on the Rock, the Dome of the Rock, and being that it's right in the middle of the war, it's concerning, and I'm gonna show you why. Okay. Okay. Let me get back to my note. It's a temple in Temple Mount in Jerusalem. This is one of the most religiously significant locations on earth. For Muslims, the site is sacred because it is believed to be connected to the Prophet Muhammad's ascension to heaven. For Jews, the same location is believed to be where the first and second Jewish temples once stood thousands of years ago. Because of that history, some religious interpretations, particularly among certain Jewish and Christian groups, say that one day a third temple could be rebuilt on that same site. The reason people bring this up during time of war is because the Dome of the Rock currently sits on that exact area where that ancient temple once stood. So when tensions rise in the Middle East, especially involving Israel and Iran, people online, start saying things like, if the dome were to ever be destroyed, prophecy would begin. And let's take a look at what I'm speaking of. Give me a minute. Is this the one?
Take a look at this. The birds of the skies are now officially giving us a warning that there is something terrible going to happen in the world right now. And as we know, this is like a swarm of birds. Look at this stuff. The entire skies are filled with ravens and crows and birds just panicking. So this stuff is happening currently in the United States, right as we speak about all the wars that's currently taking place. And apart from this, what's even more terrifying is that there is a massive swarm of locusts which is especially mentioned in the Bible, which will happen right before the end times, before the second coming of Jesus Christ. These things are literally mentioned in the chapter Revelation. And right now, take a look at what's currently happening in America as well as in Europe. And you're just going to be mind blown right here.
As 160 million creatures per square mile are devouring entire towns, and we won't get another warning about this. People were terrified after the UN issued an emergency alert for all across North Africa, as swarms of locusts were so dense that they were darkening the sky, covering roads, cities, and farmland, with the Book of Exodus warning that God will send locusts that covers the face of the earth during the beginning of his judgment.
So this is basically happening right now in Africa, and apparently all of that locust is basically traveling towards America and Europe. So these locusts are supposedly eating up all the crops that they've been having and growing for years together in Africa.
As much food in a day as what 35,000 humans eat in a day, with drivers unable to see through their windshield as millions swarm across highways in seconds, with the Food and Agriculture Organization warning the swarms are breeding and could grow 400 times larger and spread rapidly in just a few months. As the swarm has already crossed from Africa into Europe just this week, with no signs of slowing down. And the last time this happened, they crossed the entire Atlantic Ocean and hit the Americas in 5 days.
So that, to be honest, is something that we should definitely be concerned about, because as far as what we read from the Bible, we know that there are going to be multiple seals that are going to be opened until the seventh seal before the second coming of Christ. Now, if you have been seeing what's going on in the world with the kind of wars and rumors of wars, and obviously right now there is no longer rumors because Israel, America, Iran, and so many other nations are currently at war, and this could literally turn into something that we have always been trying to avoid for all these years. But it seems like the days are finally outnumbered, because as of now, we know that there is a massive lunar eclipse which is coming up. And during this eclipse, right when all the war is currently going on, it turns out that the moon is going to turn blood red in color on March 3rd, which is the day I'm recording this video. So today, if you go out and watch the moon at 3:30 a.m., it's basically going to be red in color. Now, this is going to happen in America as well as in Europe. So people out there, they're going to be able to witness this whole thing happening. Now, the last time this happened, we already saw that there were massive wars happening between Iran and Israel. But right now, the war has just scaled up to a whole new level. And once again, we're getting this red blood moon, which obviously is something that has already been mentioned in the Bible, in the chapter Revelation, as well as in Romans prophecy, Daniel's prophecy, Revelation's prophecy. All of these things have already prophesied that there will be red blood colored moon, which will occur right before the second coming of Christ. And before that happens, there will be a lot of signs. One of the major signs is that the world will be at unpeace. And there will be rumors of wars and actual wars happening and taking place all around the world. And right now, this is the scene of what's actually going on. This is like a footage from a beach. Just take a look at how scary this whole movement actually looks like. They're firing off missiles. There's jet flying over. You never know what the hell is actually going on. And right now, people in Israel, in Jerusalem, are running for their lives. Like, take a look at this stuff. There is some massive outbreaking of battles that are being fought right now. And this could eventually turn out to be something that we've always been trying to avoid. The word which I don't really want to say because YouTube doesn't take those words very lightly. So I want to avoid those words, but you guys know what it is. And this is currently what's going on around the world. And I think we are officially entering the final days of judgment. Because as of now, as I'm making this video today, there are 10 plus countries that have officially entered the war. And those countries are obviously Iran, United States, and Israel. The whole battle started between these three, and then it moved on to Yemen, Bahrain, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Qatar, UAE, and Kuwait. Now, there are more people joining in because recently we just got some latest updates stating that China has also started supplying Iran, and Russia is also supplying Iran with much more missiles and many firepowers which they could defend themselves, and also
how do y'all feel about China and Russia joining in on this and how they've been assisting Iran in the whole situation? situation.
Attack other nations and also attack their enemies. So things are getting really heated up, and it definitely seems like the entire world is going to start getting into this whole battle. I think you guys should definitely take a look at this clip right here.
Iran war is widening fast. What started as a conflict between 3 countries has now dragged a staggering 13 into the fallout. And today marked a major escalation because Iran struck UK military bases in Cyprus, meaning for the first time this war has now officially touched European territory. Now, in response, the UK has authorized the United States to use its military bases to help destroy Iran's missile systems, and a member of the European Parliament for Cyprus is already calling for action.
Cyprus is an EU territory, and one attack on a member state should be considered as an attack to the entire European Union. We want and we expect a united response from the entire European Union.
And that wasn't the only development today. Lebanon has now been dragged into this conflict as well after Hezbollah launched strikes on Israel in solidarity with Iran. Meanwhile, Qatar and Saudi Arabia were pulled in a pretty major way after a number of their energy facilities were hit. Qatar, which supplies around 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas, they were forced to suspend their operations. And the same goes for Saudi.
So this basically means that the gas prices are just going to reach all-time high, like we have never seen before. That's what's going to happen. And this basically means that we have officially entered the war state.
This oil refinery had to temporarily halt production after a large fire broke out. And then there's NATO. We got their comments for the first time after their Secretary General called Iran a threat to Europe, Israel, and the wider region, saying Europe is really stepping up after this weekend's operations. But when asked if NATO forces would get involved in this situation, he made it pretty clear. He said, this is
clearly a campaign led by Americans and the Israelites. So this is said by what we are seeing now is the allies, wherever they can enable the United States campaign together with Israel, they're doing that.
And Israel. So for now, NATO is staying out of it. But of course,
that's a pretty good decision as of now. And to be honest, man, this is the current state of what's going on in UAE. Look at the people out there. It's 1:25 in the morning. And everybody's out there in the streets. They're terrified of what's going to happen, where the bombs are going to be dropping from. And, you know, this is one of the most terrifying situations that you can ever live in. There's also a mother that actually films where she basically lives in an apartment and she starts hearing a missile. Just take a look at this. Hear that sound.
Terrifying.
Oh, dude. Oh, dude. Look at that thing. The panel just came off. That is scary. Imagine living in this location right now. If you're living in Dubai or living somewhere in the UAE or Israel or Iran, it's going to be terrifying. Look at the sound, dude. That sounds scary.
It's very scary.
Oh, man. You never know where it's going to fall, right? That is scary as F. Now, there's something very concerning when it comes to one of the most scariest prophecies in the Bible, because all the things that we've been seeing so far, from the locust being formed, you know, they're basically consuming all the crops all across Africa, and it's moving towards South America, and it's also moving towards America and Europe. So this basically means that there is a major problem that's currently heading. We never know when it's going to be reaching both of these regions, but obviously one or the other day, it's going to be there with all of the war stuff that's happening right now. It definitely seems like the prophecies are officially being fulfilled. And what's important here is that you should actually take a look at Exodus chapter 10, which basically refers to locust, which will be coming up right before the end times, where it basically states that future prophecies at the time. Now, this event establishes the locust as a biblical symbol of total divine judgment, where God is going to be judging us humans with the help of locusts, where it's going to be eating up everything that's out there in the world. The humans are going to suffer with no food in the future. Now, in Revelation chapter 9, verse 3 to 11, it very clearly mentions that John describes the locusts rising from the bottomless pit. However, these are supernatural. They have the sting of a scorpion, hair like woman, and teeth like lions. Rather than eating plants, they are prophesied to torment people who are not have the seal of God. So it basically means that people who are not protected by the seal of God are going to be tormented by these creatures that are going to come out of the bottomless pit. And as of now, we've already seen what's going on. We know that there's a massive swarm of these locusts.
And we won't get another warning about this. People were terrified after
look at that stuff. Just take a look at this stuff.
All across North Africa.
That is scary. I'm not even going to lie.
That they were darkening the sky, covering roads, cities, and farmland.
And apart from this, we also have birds that are giving us signs regarding the end times. No, I don't think it can get any worse than this, because right now, everything about the nature is basically screaming that a world is coming to an end. And what's even more interesting about this prophecy with the latest eclipse that's coming up?
And let me tell you how good God is. Because clearly you don't know him. I actually... my religious practice or spiritual practices are hoodoo and root work, but I believe in God. And I know God the Father exists. And God, what kind of sad existence do you live in if you don't believe in something? You believe in absolutely nothing. You don't believe in God. I am grown. I'm very grown. Thank you. And let's not forget, Trump is out here saying repeatedly that he's not going to heaven.
And the red moon, it's actually going to surprise you even more, because you guys should take a look at this one right here.
Take place. The amount of coincidences that align with this lunar eclipse are literally impossible. So this lunar eclipse will reach its peak at 3:33 a.m. on March 3rd. That just happens to be the first day of the celebration of Purim, a celebration from when the Hebrews were spared from Persia, which is modern-day Iran.
It's Iran.
Shut up. And what's about to happen right now with Iran? And of course, Iran is allegedly holding Americans hostage now. The Bank of America mural. We know that Trump was born on a lunar eclipse, on a blood moon. We know that Trump is, in fact, the...
So this was indeed a fact that Trump was actually born during the blood moon lunar eclipse. So that was the day he was actually born. I've also read about the stuff in a previous article and a news article as well. I think Trump himself was actually mentioning this stuff, that he was born during the blood moon.
Moonchild. And they're saying he'll make his attack by Monday. And speaking of this moonchild, they're now
I'm just showing you some prophecies
another
are unfolding.
Remember when he said, like, you beat the Christians, just vote this last time and you won't have to do it ever again? What was that about? Monday being the day of this lunar eclipse and all.
Let me say this, and everyone's welcome to their opinions, okay? Everyone. This isn't a fairy tale made up. I know God exists, and I know he blesses me daily. I know there's a God. I have told the story of Valentine's Day of 2015 when I died. I had a whole stroke. I appreciate life, but I do believe there's something beyond this. And even if it's made up, I just can't agree with you. Like, I go by the teachings of my grandmother, my father, the people around me. So you're not going to be able to change my beliefs. It's bad enough I already get persecuted for the whole hoodoo aspect of things. But yeah, it is what it is. Set your intentions in life and ask to be guided. Now let's take a quick look into what's going on now before I close. Lord, you're on a commercial break. Hold on. They keep replaying the same thing. This is terrifying, honestly. I think I played that one. I think I've covered most of the videos. So we're about to close. I'm trying to see if there's anything else we need to talk about before we leave up out of here. Did y'all see this?
Money, American engineers, and enough electromagnetic shielding to keep operating if everything above ground goes dark. In the next couple of minutes, I'll show you what really happened, and you'll see why Israel wants it to stay hidden. Quick before we continue, thanks a lot for tuning in. Your support is what keeps this show going, and I appreciate you watching. As always, please make sure you're subscribed and like the video so more people get to see this. Now let's get to it. We are now past day 10. Over 500 missiles and 2,000 drones have been launched, and the IRGC has been naming its targets publicly. They listed 27 U.S. bases. They listed Ben Gurion Airport. They claimed they knocked out 7 American and Israeli radar systems. But the target that matters most is the one sitting at the center of Tel Aviv, the military headquarters at Hakiria. Because what sits beneath that compound is what this entire story is really about. Most people think Israel's military headquarters is a conventional above-ground compound with some reinforced shelters below it. In reality, the Hakiria district conceals a layered network of underground command bunkers that Israel has been constructing and expanding for decades. There are at least 2 confirmed installations you should understand. The first is designated Site 81, which sits somewhere beneath the center of Tel Aviv. According to reports, this site is a roughly 6,000 square meter electromagnetically shielded intelligence center. It was designed to survive electronic warfare attacks and maintain communications, even if everything above ground goes dark. The second installation is called the Fortress of Zion. This is a newer, deeper Israeli military command post built directly beneath the headquarters in central Tel Aviv. The New York Times was given access and described a nerve center where roughly 70 people sat at multiple levels facing wall-mounted screens tracking live strikes. During active conflict, thousands of soldiers work there around the clock. This is what the IRGC is talking about when it references underground command infrastructure in Tel Aviv. This is what Iranian missiles have been aimed at. Now here is where we come back to the precedent that makes the current claims credible, or at least worth investigating seriously. During the 2025 12-day war between Iran and Israel in June, a conflict that killed 28 Israelis and hospitalized over 3,000, Iranian ballistic missiles struck the north tower of the Da Vinci apartment complex. The entire impact zone was sealed. No cameras were allowed. The Jerusalem Post later reported that the missile landed, in their words, a stone's throw from Netanyahu's office, which at the time was known as Building 22. Weeks after that war ended, the Prime Minister's office began undergoing renovations. The rumor, which has never been confirmed or denied by Israeli officials, is that the building sustained damage in the strike. To this day, Google Maps blurs the satellite imagery over that section of Tel Aviv. On Leonardo da Vinci Street, directly in front of the towers, Google does not offer Street View. Russia's Yandex Maps does the same thing, censoring both imagery and location data for the Da Vinci complex. France 24 conducted an analysis and concluded that Israeli media coverage of the Da Vinci strike had likely been deliberately delayed. Haaretz waited a full 2 weeks before publishing anything about the hit, even though photos had already circulated online. So Iran targeted this exact area once before. The damage was sealed off, the media was blocked, the satellite data is still censored, and now, in March 2026, the IRGC is claiming it hit the same zone again. We will come back to the question of what that means for Israel's ability to protect its deepest command layer, but first, you need to understand the scale of what has been raining down on central Israel over the past 10 days. On day 1, approximately 90 ballistic missiles were fired at Israel. Day 2, around 60. After that, roughly 20 per day, arriving in smaller but more frequent volleys. The pattern has changed. The individual salvos have gotten smaller, but the weapons themselves have gotten bigger and more destructive. By March 5th, a military source told Iran's Fars news agency that the country had launched more than 500 ballistic and cruise missiles and over 2,000 drones. Iran claims 40% of that firepower was aimed at Israel and 60% at American positions across the region. On the opening night, a complete Iranian ballistic missile, a full warhead carrying several hundred kilograms of explosives, struck directly beside a Tel Aviv apartment building. And on the 1st of March, the deadliest single strike of the war so far.
Now, I want to say this. I keep hearing, and yeah, there's a reason to be afraid. I keep hearing that, the United States has nothing to worry about because their missiles will never get over here, whatnot and whatever. But what about the use of direct energy weapons? I know we have them. Does Iran have them as well? I'm just curious.
Hit Beit Shemesh. A missile carrying roughly 500 kilograms of explosives collapsed an underground civilian bomb shelter that was accessible by 2 flights of stairs. 9 people were killed. Investigators later concluded that even a fully compliant shelter would not have survived a direct hit of that force. The interceptor that was fired at that missile missed. No mechanical failure was found. The system engaged, it just did not connect. That detail matters because it gets at the core debate running underneath all of this. The White House claims that Iranian ballistic missile strikes dropped by 90% between day 1 and day 6, crediting American and Israeli operations against Iranian mobile launchers inside the country. But even with that reduction, missiles are still breaking through. As of March 8th, 4 confirmed major impacts have hit the Israeli home front: Tel Aviv, Beit Shemesh, Beersheba, central Israel. Since the war began, 1,619 Israelis have been hospitalized. 87 remain in hospital beds. 4 are in critical condition. 10 Israeli civilians have been killed. Most people assume Israel's multi-layered air defense network is functioning at near total effectiveness. In reality, the fact that a Khorramshahr 4 cluster warhead can land in central Tel Aviv and scatter submunitions across a 5-mile radius tells a very different operational story. That missile, also designated K-Bar, is the most destructive confirmed weapon in Iran's ballistic inventory. It was first revealed in May 2023. It flies roughly 2,000 kilometers. It carries a warhead of approximately 1,500 kilograms, and its cluster configuration opens at about 7 kilometers altitude, releasing around 20 individual submunitions, each carrying about 2.5 kilograms of explosive, across a massive dispersal zone. And that dispersal pattern is what transforms a single missile from a pinpoint threat into an area saturation weapon. For a densely built zone like the Tel Aviv Metropolitan Core, that changes the defensive math entirely. The IRGC confirmed it deployed this weapon during what it called the 19th wave of Operation True Promise, targeting central Tel Aviv, Ben Gurion Airport, and the 27th Air Base of the Israeli Air Force, with warheads weighing 1,000 kilograms. Israel disputed most of this, insisting its defenses intercepted every overnight missile, though it did acknowledge one morning strike that hit open ground in a central town. Firefighters responded to 2 main impact zones in central Israel where cluster munitions had scattered. A first responder described finding a man in his 40s lying on the grass with a severe shrapnel wound. This is the weapon that makes underground bunker targeting relevant. A conventional warhead needs a direct hit to threaten a buried facility. A cluster warhead turns the entire surface above that facility into a kill zone, shredding ventilation systems, communications arrays, and access points. And if those submunitions are landing within the Hakiria footprint, the question is no longer whether they reached the neighborhood, it is whether they reached the depth. Now, towards the end here, I want to show you the mirror image that both governments are pretending does not exist. Because while Iran is claiming to strike Israel's underground command structure, Israel carried out the verified version of that exact operation against Iran. On March 6, approximately 50 Israeli Air Force fighter jets dropped around 100 bombs on the underground bunker of Ali Khamenei beneath the leadership compound in central Tehran. The IDF announced total destruction of the facility. The bunker extended beneath multiple city streets and contained meeting rooms, entry points, and command chambers used by senior Iranian officials, even after Khamenei's assassination on the first day of the war. Israel's Unit 8,200 and Unit 9,900, its signals and visual intelligence branches, spent years mapping every corridor of that facility before the strike was ordered. The footage was released publicly. The confirmation was explicit. Iran has produced no equivalent evidence for its claimed strike on Israeli underground infrastructure. But the absence of proof is not the same as the absence of an event, not when the impact area was sealed, not when the satellite imagery is still blurred, not when the same location was struck in June 2025 and the media was physically prevented from documenting it. Both governments are engaged in the same operation, hunting the other side's buried command architecture. One side showed its hand, the other sealed the evidence. The broader math of this conflict keeps accelerating. Crude oil has crossed $115 a barrel, a direct consequence of disrupted shipping through the Strait of Hormuz and damaged Gulf state energy infrastructure. More than 1,300 Iranian civilians are confirmed dead.
I'm going to show y'all the last video, then we're going to close. It's about him. Oh, actually, let me look at Osmo.
The U.S. didn't authorize Israel's attack on Iran's oil depots, and Trump is getting mad? Wait, what? Breaking, the U.S. is dismayed by Israel's attacks on 30 oil depots on Saturday, sparking the first significant disagreement between the allies since the war began, per Axios. Strikes details include, the strikes reportedly went far beyond what the U.S. expected when Israel notified it in advance. We don't think it was a good idea. An Israeli official said the U.S. message to Israel was WTF. The president doesn't like the attack. He wants to save the oil. He doesn't want to burn it. U.S. gas prices are now expected to surge well above $4 a gallon this month. Insane video appears to show the last moment the storm drains across the Iranian capital of Tehran exploded and burst into flames as a result of runoff from the Shahran oil depot. Oh my God. Wait, is this a real video? Holy shit. This is an oil refinery, and Tehran province has been targeted in an airstrike, causing a massive fire. And again, some of these might be misattributed. You know, all this is breaking news. It's coming out as we're looking at it. Footage shows massive flames in Tehran, reportedly from oil tanks hit by Israeli strikes. Jesus Christ. Well, I guess Trump wasn't lying. I feel like these are probably the biggest attacks that I've seen. Crude oil futures just opened up 20%. Trump's going to crash out. It's $108. I'm not sure how to read this. Oh. Shit. So the last time it was this high was in 2022. This shit went up real quick. 73%. I feel like we're getting another one of these if Netanyahu doesn't comply with Trump's strategy. Yeah.
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I'd never seen before. We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
He mad.
All kinds of things have happened in the last 2 years that no one ever could have predicted. Like really, really radical things, from Trump being in Pennsylvania to right now, a week ago, the United States declaring, unprovoked, there's no direct provocation in the middle of negotiations with Iran. Like, even though it was happening, it was still a shock that it actually happened. Since we have a very recent track record of really unusual, if not radical, things happening, I mean, how concerned should we be in the United States about something like really radical happening here, and not just as likely a false flag or whatever, Americans being America, which is what matters, but like the U.S. government doing something crazy? How should we feel about criticism of this war? Are Americans who criticize the war from within the United States at risk? Yeah. Do you think? I mean, let's just be honest.
It terrifies me. Let's be honest, and you should be honest, because, well, let's look at the Department of Homeland Security, right? And you and I can be supportive of a lot of the president's immigration policy. Yeah. And I think we can also recognize that there were parts of that immigration policy which were specifically directed by a foreign lobby for trying to deport people who were critical of the nation state of Israel. Sorry, I didn't care about that. That was literally like a function of like the Department of Anti-Racism effectively coming in, becoming the Department of Anti-Semitism as floated by Ibrahim Kendi. That was the level of insanity that we saw when people are getting deported for writing an op-ed. Okay, well, now this machinery has a new potential lead, Mark Wayne Mullen. He's very pro-Israel. Well, also, let's see, that could get, marched and created into an organism where already, I've seen calls for people who are critical of the war, it should be silenced, should be subpoenaed. I think I saw that one about you. They said that you should be subpoenaed and dragged.
They said I should be imprisoned.
Right, imprisoned, right? Didn't somebody say you should even be put into an internment camp? Yep. This is how it all happened, guys. I mean, this is how it all had the Pearl Harbor to intern camps for Japanese was like this. It was a blink of an eye within a year-long period. That's how it happened, where we stripped all of these Americans of their fundamental rights and locked them in a camp That's insane. So the idea that it could never happen is obviously proven by our own history that it very obviously could. But more importantly, it will look like in a 21st century way. So there will be AI. There's already mass censorship. There's mass bots and propaganda efforts that are going on right now. I mean, already, how difficult is it to even see various types of video, which is coming out from the actual conflict, trying to verify whether any of this is even real in real time as we're processing what's happening. But I think what you raise is if you look at every war as for Americans, especially the wars of my lifetime, the war on terror, I am fundamentally less free today than I was as a child born in the United States in 1992. And the Americans who lived through Vietnam were less free after the Vietnam War than they were before. And the Americans who were born, or the Americans in World War II, were less free in many respects, or especially during the war, for censorship rules and all of the stuff that the government was doing than before the outbreak of the war. And then before that with World War I, in the Civil War too. I mean, think about suspension of habeas corpus, all of these different things that these presidents have done. It is a natural effect for a wartime nation to crack down on speech, and specifically critical speech of those war efforts. And we should be afraid. Even if you like the person who is in power, you need to recognize that this is a historical trend which goes back through our entire history. It's part of the reason I think that you and I abhor war so much. And we also, this is the scariest part, is when you watch this censorship be self-imposed on media organizations, and you create a system and an incentive structure such that criticizing the war will remove, any professional ability that you may have to advance yourself. Specifically, let's say as a policymaker in Washington, you and I know dozens of people who are in power. They don't support this war. They can't say anything out of fear of losing their job. I'm not just talking about in the White House. I'm talking about in the entire, national security apparatus, the think tanks or others, because they're afraid, of either being called by the donors or for saying that you're being too critical of something that the president supports. Open debate and free speech, the inability to have any of that in the lead up to Iraq destroyed our nation. It destroyed it. I'm very committed to making sure that doesn't happen again. But you and I are we're individuals, and the U.S. government is a Leviathan, and we should be wary of it.
Are you? I mean, as someone, and this is not flattery, but it's sincere. You were one of the very first people to see this realignment in American politics. I mean, 10 years ago. You saw it very clearly, and you staked your whole career on it, and you were right, and that's why you've been successful, I would say. So it's worth listening to your prediction, I think, on this question. Do you see a crackdown on civil liberties, human rights in the United States coming up because of this war? The war is a pretext for what was already in the plans, but do you see that happening?
I could see it easily happening. And we already have the machinery, as we saw with Israel criticism and the so-called Department of Anti-Racism. I've raised several cases to you, Tucker, of the Department of Justice getting involved in campus incidents, which is insane, by the way. I oppose that under Obama. Yeah. I oppose that under Biden. I oppose it now. I'm going to stick to my principles. The machinery for that is already laid, and it is one that should really terrify us. And you and I are in a unique position. We can speak out. I don't really care about myself. I care about the individual person who is relatively powerless with 200 or so followers getting a knock on the door by the FBI saying, hey, why did you say this? What did you mean by that? And that very level of harassment is chilling, not to mention an institutional level. Who knows? I mean, will the government find people? Look at the situation with Anthropic and Claude, right? I mean, you have this showdown between the Pentagon and Anthropic over the use of AI, their technology, in a time of war, demands over human oversight. The government's basically saying that's unacceptable. You don't get to dictate those terms to us. They can blacklist you as a company, literally blacklist you for not agreeing to those terms. That's fine. That's their right. But think about that. I mean, they're basically saying that not only are they not going to use the tech, they're not blacklisted from all U.S. government contractors, which is massively, massively impactful to their entire business. This can happen across the board. And you can look at the CBS acquisition right now with Barry Weiss in charge of CBS News. Censorship doesn't just happen. And censorship and reduction of civil liberty does not just happen at the government level. Corporate censorship, corporate power can be just as much of a threat to your individual liberty as the government power.
I mean, this is the last English-speaking country, probably the last country in the world in which attitudes have not yet been criminalized, at least officially. But Australia, New Zealand, Canada, every country in Europe, you're not allowed to have certain attitudes. You can go to jail.
That is very true. Hold on. And I think it's not good that we have a president that continues to say he's not going to heaven,
but are too
and then
afraid to
we're
say
going to
out loud.
close.
There is a question that every American should be asking right now, and nobody in the media, nobody in Congress, nobody in his own party has the courage to ask it. So I did. On the Megyn Kelly show this week, I said what millions of people are thinking but are too afraid to say out loud. Donald Trump has said repeatedly on camera in interviews that he does not believe he is going to heaven, and I want to know what that means for the rest of us. Let me be very specific because the specifics matter. This is not something he said once in passing. On Air Force One in 2025, Trump told a reporter, and these are his words, "I really do not think I am heaven bound." In another interview, he said, "I do not think I can make it. I do not think I qualify." At a press conference just weeks ago, he told the room, "I hope to make it, but I doubt I will, to be honest with you. A lot of you will. I am not so sure." He even sent an email to his supporters saying he wants to try to get into heaven. These are not isolated moments. This is a pattern. A president of the United States telling the country over and over that he believes something disqualifies him from grace. Now Megyn Kelly tried to suggest he was being cheeky, and I pushed back because I know this man. I was in his inner circle. I stood next to him at rallies, at events, at private meetings. I defended him when no one else would. And I am telling you, I do not think the president is being tongue-in-cheek. He repeatedly says he is not going to heaven, the same way he repeatedly asks, "What do you think? Should I run for president again?" That started out as something we could take as a joke, but I do not think he is joking about either one. And this is where it gets serious, because the third term question is not theoretical. In January, Trump told Reuters in a sit-down interview, "When you think of it, we should not even have an election." The White House said he was joking. But then in a separate interview with the New York Times, he danced around committing to respect the results of the midterm elections, saying he always respects election results, but that elections in our country are rigged. At the Kennedy Center, speaking to House Republicans, he said, "How do we even have to run against these people? I will not say cancel the election, should cancel the election." The White House press secretary was asked directly, "Is the president saying he finds the idea of canceling elections funny?" Her response was, "Were you in the room?" So here is the pattern I am asking the American people to look at. A president who says repeatedly that he does not believe he will go to heaven. A president who says repeatedly that maybe we should not have elections. A president who, when asked if he is joking about running for a third term in March of 2025, told NBC News, "I am not joking." A president who put Trump 2028 hats in the White House gift shop within months of taking office. And Steve Bannon, who helped build the MAGA movement from scratch, said publicly he is going to get a third term. There is a plan. At the appropriate time, we will lay out what the plan is. Those are not my words. Those are the words of the people closest to this president. Now, let me connect.
And this creeps me out, because what if he is able to pull that off? Because I thought you're only allowed 2 terms. Child. This whole thing isn't just about politics or territory. This is a place where history, religion, and global power all collide in the same space. And when those things mix together, conflicts here can become much bigger than just another war. And here's the reality nobody wants to say out loud. Wars like this rarely stay limited. Rarely. They start with precision strikes, then retaliation, Then alliances get involved. And before you know it, the entire world is watching another conflict spiral out of control. So while politicians argue about strategy and victory, the real question is, how far does things go before someone decides it's time to stop? And that is the part nobody seems to have an answer for, because neither side is going to stop in this situation. So how far will this go? I will continue to bring you updates on this and other stories. Tomorrow, I am breaking down Charlemagne the God, as I am somewhat of a second cousin of his. And we're going to touch back on his story and how Berkeley County does not really celebrate him down here. Like I said, make sure you like, share, comment, because I do engage, subscribe, hit that notification bell, set it to all so you be notified anytime I go live, upload, or premiere. Y'all be kind to one another. I'm out. As I'm leaving out, we're going to look at some of the devastation that is happening. Hold on one second, guys. Because I kind of wanted to end it with that at the 2-hour mark.
Keep more of your money. That's what we did. It's not a promise. We delivered.
It's coming, guys. You guys have a good evening. And be kind to one another. Be kind to others. Judy, can you get rid of that comment for me if you're here? opinion. I look exactly like my picture babe. Okay. Me.
بشكل مباشر نعم يتم الصياغه الان على الهواء مباشره. يبدو بان هنالك صواريخ سقطت على الارض. نعم يبدو بانه لا ادري لن اؤكدها او انفي، ولكن اخر نستطيع ان نراه الان على الهواء مباشره وميز للمزيد من الانفجارات. والان تتم هذه كلها صواريخ باليستيه او صواريخ كبيره يتم اطلاقها من قبل الايرانيين قريبه جدا على مدينه القدس. انظر الى هذا الوميض. دفاعات جويه كبيره جدا على الهواء مباشره، وذلك في محاوله ليست القبه الحديديه هذه اشبه بالاعدادات وذلك بسرعتها. هذا صاروخ باليستي، هذا الذي تحتيه. انظر للصاروخ الباليستي، هذا هو الصاروخ الباليستي، هذا هو الصاروخ الباليستي. يبدو بانه تم حط الصواريخ. هذه عمليه الاشتباك، صاروخ شرقي وصاروخ غربي، وهذا الانفجار الذي تراه انفجار كبير. هذا الصاروخ الباليستي ينفجر الان على الهواء مباشره.
Exposing liars and braces too. Crimes and scandals all exposed to you. My creativity paints the view. Pull you in like the morning dew. My voice will ring through your soul tonight. Forever echo in your mind side. Like and share if you feel the light. Subscribe and hit the bell so right. The minor key rings, it rules the game. Become a member, don't be late. Every story I claim the frame. Truth and fire is my name. Exposing liars and racists too. Crimes and scandals I'll expose to you. My creativity paints the view. Pull you in like the morning dew. My voice will ring through your soul tonight. Forever echo in your mind side. Like and share if you feel the light. Subscribe and hit the bell so